Now, one man who would have had a keen eye on the deliberations of the High Court in London today is my next guest, Richard Medhurst. Although a peaceful, Christian, British journalist, he's currently held in not one country, but two countries, Britain and Austria, waiting for a decision on whether or not he's to be charged with terrorism for his words, written and spoken. And anyone who's a regular viewer of the mother of all talk shows knows that nobody writes and speaks as powerfully as Richard Medhurst, who joins us now. Richard, a good deal of celebration today in London. It's going to be a long haul. It doesn't get the people who are currently being held on fake terrorism charges for holding up a piece of cardboard with words on it. Doesn't get them out of jail, doesn't get them freed, but a judicial review is a significant breakthrough. I'll put that to you. What do you think?
Hi, George. It's good to be back on the program. Thanks for having me. Yes, so originally, I was following this whole prescription case from the beginning as it was taking place. I attended the court remotely, and I'll just say one thing before I get into today's outcome is that they had the Lord, or I should say Lady Chief Justice, and two other judges who just so happened to be ready to take the appeal immediately after. So this is already late in the evening that day, which looked to me and looked to Craig, who was in the court and feeding me all this information as well from the sessions I couldn't attend, as a stitch-up, if we can put it that way, or be that blunt. But yes, today is very important news, because a lot of people in the last couple of weeks we've been seeing all up and down the country, even in places like Truro, in Cornwall, coming out and holding up these placards. And in some cases, people who just happen to have perhaps a keffiyah on, being arrested under the very same provision that I was arrested under, this Section 12 of 12(1)(a), where it's basically giving an opinion that can be considered supportive of a prescribed organization. And again, I should point out, this is the first direct action, the first protest group to be ever placed on this list, and it is very significant. And so you've had groups like Defend Our Jurors that have been also campaigning to have people come out every weekend and hold up placards and basically engage in what is just civil disobedience and a peaceful protest to have this prescription lifted. Now, what the decision today means is that there's going to be, so Palestine Action, specifically Huda Amori, they've won permission to go ahead with this judicial review, and that means that they're going to go challenge the government decision at the High Court. And I don't have the dates yet, but I can tell you that it's going to be in November. It's going to happen across the span of a few days, and I'll hopefully be covering it in the court. And this is obviously a massive blow to not just Yvette Cooper, but also to Keir Starmer, on whose behest she is acting. And this is something that might take a couple of years. And just to be very clear, that until that group is lifted, until the judicial review goes through, and if it's successful for Palestine Action, it will still be considered an offence to display any form of support. But again, we're reaching levels that are so ridiculous now that people who just happen to have the word Palestine maybe or wearing a keffiyah have been arrested and accused. This is both in England and Scotland of supporting a terrorist organisation, and they're basically going wild with this and arresting people just for the slightest transgression. And this again strikes at the core of free speech and the right to protest. We have to be very clear about that. And this is the danger that I was pointing to when I got arrested, that if you don't have the right to speak freely, you can't have a free press, and if you don't have the right to protest, well, you can't have a free society. So, all of these cases are somehow related, in the sense not just that they talk about Palestine, but that they're really going after our fundamental rights in the UK.
For sure, and I've no doubt that we'll have to talk again about that. Even Donald Trump was able to shame the British Prime Minister yesterday on the issue of freedom of speech. Starmer had no reply that he could credibly give to the charge that Britain a country that I was born into a long time before you, and our whole shtick was that we were a free society. It was the communists over there that did censorship and tyranny. We were the free world, and one of our characteristics was we had the right to protest, strike, speak, write, do whatever we wanted to do to make our true and genuine beliefs known. And you've only got to adumbrate that which we had and compare it with what the situation is now to realize how far we've fallen. But let's move on because there's so much to discuss. Is there going to be a ceasefire in Gaza or not? Is there going to be British and French recognition of a Palestinian state or not? And what would that in any case mean if it were to happen? Your views, please.
Well, George, I have to be honest. I don't take I don't put much stock into the words of Keir Starmer on any subject, and this idea that he's going to use Palestinian self-determination, which again is an inalienable right, as some sort of bargaining chip, is frankly insulting. And what is the message here? I mean, he's basically trying to use that to threaten the Israelis. Well, let's say, for example, that they actually comply with what he's asking them to do, which is ridiculous because he's on the same side. But let's imagine for a second that they do stop the violence, whatever that means. What does that mean? He's going to continue denying Palestinians recognition for their state. And I mean, again, I shouldn't have to point out the fact that the UK is very, very much responsible for this whole situation in the first place, with Balfour and Sykes-Picot and all the subsequent aid and diplomatic cover and weapons that we've been giving the Israelis for decades and decades and decades. So it's extraordinarily insulting. And he's acting like he's doing Palestinians a favor when during his entire tenure, he's been providing them with intelligence, with these Royal Air Force flights from taking off from Cyprus. And of course, it's not that he started it, but he continued where Sunak left off. He continued to provide them with weapons, with parts for their F-35 jets. And then he used terrorism laws against me and against other journalists and against activists and prescribed a direct action group that was dismantling the Israeli supply chain. And now he acts like he's doing Palestine a favor. You'll remember, George, there was this interview, I think it was on LBC, that Keir Starmer did, where he went on the air and he explicitly said that Israel has the right to cut off water and electricity. I mean, you don't have to be a human rights lawyer to know that that's a war crime, but he is a human rights lawyer. So he certainly knows better. And I don't think he's ever retracted those comments or apologized for them in any capacity. No. So he's done everything in his power to again, not just rhetorically, but also in terms of material conditions, kill Palestinians to make them suffer. So honestly, even if tomorrow morning he recognized the Palestinian state, I'm not really quite sure that would absolve him of what he's done. And I don't think there's going to be a ceasefire. I think that all of these, it's not just Keir Starmer, but all of these leaders that are coming out now and pretending like this, they're suddenly shocked about Gaza. I think they're just running cover for the Israelis. It's kind of like putting a band-aid or a plaster on a gunshot wound and acting like, oh yeah, we see the violence, don't worry, we're going to do something about it. But they're really just buying time for the Israelis to keep killing. And some people have suggested that, as a matter of fact, they might be done killing. That this is basically just they're wrapping up the end. I mean, frankly, I don't know what the death toll is right now. The Lancet say it's 400,000. Others say it's, the Hamas-run health ministry, as the BBC say, will tell you it's 60,000. Does it really matter at the end of the day? Genocide is based on intent. And the land grabs are happening. The Israelis hold conferences and meetings about openly in public about stealing land in Gaza. So there's a multitude of crimes going on here that no ceasefire is going to solve.
Well, of course, it may be that they're done killing. Although listening to Ben-Gvir, who may very well end up, I mean, some people say he'll never be prime minister, but that's what they once said about Menachem Begin, the leader of the terror gang with the blood of British officials on his hand. They said it about Yitzhak Shamir, who personally murdered the United Nations envoy, the Swedish count. Shamir personally murdered him with his hand. and he became the prime minister. So Ben-Gvir could well become the prime minister. And from his point of view, there'll never be a done killing. There'll never be an end to this until every last Palestinian is extirpated from the land. But let me press you on the issue of recognition. What do they mean by that, Richard? I mean, Britain has supported the Oslo Agreement for 35 years. The United States provided the lawn on which the Oslo Agreement was signed. Every government in the West is already committed to a two-state solution, to the Oslo process, but it's endless process and no outcome, and deliberately so. So what is it that they would in fact be recognizing if they go ahead with that recognition?
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent point, George. It kind of goes without saying, and it's perplexing. I know it's very perplexing because they're supposed to have been there from the beginning in favor of a two-state solution. And I'll go back even further to the UNGA Resolution 181. So that's what the Israelis cite as the basis of the creation of Israel. Well, what they don't tell you is that UNGA 181 stipulates three conditions. It doesn't just say there can be an Israel. It says that there's an Israeli state for Jews, and there's a Palestinian state for Arabs, and there's also Jerusalem as a corpus separatum, which is a separate body in Latin, basically meaning that it will be sort of a capital because of its importance for all three religions, basically, but also that it wouldn't belong to one party or the other. The point is that the Israelis have never respected those other two conditions. They illegally annexed Jerusalem, and they've never allowed a Palestinian state to materialize. And even when they did have the Oslo Accords, I mean, they went on to kill Arafat. They went on to keep building illegal settlements in the West Bank, even putting illegal football clubs there. Everything, frankly, that belongs to the Israeli state, even from a football club to a settlement, is illegal in the West Bank, and they just keep on building them and expanding them and increasing them, their presence in numbers. You've had hundreds of thousands of Israeli settlers move into the West Bank since the Oslo Accords. They've never been sanctioned, they've never been punished, they've never been stopped or impeded in any capacity by the UK or the US. So the whole thing is a farce, and really this kind of speaks to the whole premise of Western diplomacy in the last 30 years in general. I mean, I can point to the Minsk agreements, I can point to the 2+4 talks, the Iran nuclear deal. I mean, what is there that we haven't lied about in negotiations to the other side, whether it's the Palestinians, the Russians, or the Iranians? We don't have any more real diplomats, unfortunately. We just have worse liars and criminals in suits. That's it. There's no more diplomacy. So what they've been recognizing as a Palestinian state, would that even include Gaza? Because they've been demanding that Hamas depart from, not just disarm, but depart entirely. They don't, Keir Starmer and his French counterpart, Macron, they don't elaborate on that whatsoever. It's just some vague token that they throw out there to make it look like they're unbiased or that they're trying to resolve this. But they have no interest whatsoever in a peace process or in a Palestinian state. And they're not trying to pressure the Israelis one bit. I don't think anyone, there should be no illusions or misunderstandings about that. The Israelis don't actually feel that this is some kind of a pressure tactic. They know it's all an act. This is all calculated and coordinated and agreed upon beforehand. And again, Keir Starmer should be viewed as a full partner in crime with the Zionists. He is not an external party. He's not complicit. He is a belligerent. He has made the UK armed forces, unfortunately, a belligerent party in this genocide against the Palestinians. So again, there is just these abstract, tokens and terms that they throw out there, but they have no meaning in reality.
Finally, if you're able to, tell us what stage your own private persecution has reached. When can Richard Medhurst speak and write freely and travel freely again?
Well, George, I'm still out on bail, unconditional bail. So it's also been a year now. So August 15th will be the 1 year anniversary of my arrest, which is wild to say that. They haven't charged me yet. The police have sent my file to the Crown Prosecution Service in May, so two months ago they sent it. and then my bail was moved to November 5th, Guy Fawkes Day of all days. And so I'm waiting to see if Keir Starmer's Attorney General, Richard Hermer, who has family in the IDF, or dear family members serving in the IDF, as he puts it, is going to charge me. And again, that could happen tomorrow morning. It could happen on November 4th. I don't know. But my police bail date is November 5th, so I have to be back at Heathrow Police Station on November 5th. And that's unless they charge me earlier, or they decide to extend it again for the fifth time. I've frankly lost count. But I have been able to travel freely, thankfully, and I just came back from Iran. I was there to report on the war, and the destruction I saw was frankly staggering. So I'm going to be publishing a documentary film on that quite soon. I filmed a lot of good footage there, and I was privileged to be welcomed there as a foreign British journalist during wartime, and also to do all these interviews and go around reporting. So I'm trying my best to work as normal despite the circumstances.